Welcome to Cinemophile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemophilepod.com. For many of us, myself included, have wondered about the fate of theatrical screenings for films with the onslaught of all of the platforms we have available to us, all of the different ways in which we can watch films. To me, the great unraveling of the theatrical experience is something that's been uppermost in my mind for a long, long time. And thankfully, there's an organization that is near and dear to what I know their mission to be now, which is the American Genre Film Archive. They are in the business of trying to bring people back into theaters, promote the idea of going to a theater to watch a work of art, to walk out of the theater with a shared experience is the reason film it resonates with so many of us. So I'm happy and thrilled to be able to talk to our guest today, Bret Berg. He is part of the American Genre Film Archive. He is the theatrical sales director. Bret, welcome to Cinemophile.
Thank you for having me. This is I'm so glad you want to talk about this topic. It's all I think about. So,
well, I'm glad you are doing it. I thought I knew I wasn't the only one who missed places like Cinema Family and so many other theaters in the Los Angeles area that have given me hope. Gave me hope, I should say, and they're out there, and we'll talk about that as well. Tell me a little bit about American Genre Film Archive and sort of how all this plays into your interest in micro cinemas.
American Genre Film Archive, or AGFA for short. We've been around since 2008 or 9, I forget which. And it originally started as a nonprofit, having nothing to do with what we currently do, but rather its mission when it was created was to save the original Alamo Drafthouse location in downtown Austin, because the very first Alamo Drafthouse was built into what had formerly been a parking garage, and the property was going to be redeveloped. They were unsuccessful at stopping the redevelopment. However, when Alamo expanded into many locations, not just in Austin, but all over the country, its founder and CEO, Tim League, had a huge film print collection of about 2,000 film prints that he had amassed over the years. And he had so many different venues asking to borrow some of those film prints that he said, oh, we should formalize this as its own archive and nonprofit. So for the next several years after that, that's what its mission was just to fulfill print loans from its archive. And then about 10 years ago, in the mid-teens, they did a Kickstarter and raised a bunch of money to get a film scanner and started preserving some of the prints, the rarer prints in the archive. And then that grew to us having our own Blu-ray label where we release on home video some of the things that we're preserving and restoring. And then in 2017, I came along as person number 3 in the organization. And at the time, I had formerly been a programming director at Cinefamily in Los Angeles, and had left there to be the programmer at Alamo's LA Theater, which at the time was slated to open at the end of 2015. Well, we know what happened. It actually opened several years after that, so there was only so much wheel spinning that I could do. And right at the time when it looked like, I might have to exit Alamo's orbit because there was no movie theater, my friends at AGFA said, we partnered with a couple other labels, Arrow, Severin, and Vinegar Syndrome. We recently just partnered with them, and we have all of their theatrical rights, but we don't know anything about that. Do you know anybody who might be able to help us out? And I was like, this guy can help you out. Because through my job as having been the programming director at Cinefamily, I knew all the other people in the country who did my job. There's not, in the scheme of things, there's only a couple hundred venues in the United States doing repertoire, or at that time that were doing constant repertory film programming. And I used to go to, I still do go to the Art House Convergence every year, which is an annual conference for people like us. So I had an immediate customer base. So I said, I'll try this out. And what started as 150 titles has now expanded to almost 2,000. And we have about 50 different label and rights holder partners. And we talk to movie theaters all over the globe, big and small, about putting up our catalog of gut bucket vintage horror movies and also shockingly awesome art house stuff like Cassavetes and Herzog and the Archers. Now we have the Red Shoes in our theatrical catalog. It's kind of insane to think that we have both Toxic Avenger and the Red Shoes in the same list, but that's what I do all day is I sell these movies to movie theaters. And how it relates to micro cinemas is that I would say 10 years ago when we started this theatrical program at AGFA, there were only maybe two or three that were in contact with me. And now I feel like that number has expanded in the States to something like, well, if you also take into account all the people who do roving itinerant series in their towns, it's something like 40, 50, 60 clients. Mixture of like brick and mortar, we're doing the micro cinema every day or as often as we can, to people who just do a monthly at a brewery or a gallery or something. But it's a real thing, and it makes me feel good every time I open my inbox. You know, because I wake up in the morning going, "Oh God, there's like 50 emails in the inbox." But when there's something from a micro, it's very exciting, and I love to see their progress.
And let's get to kind of a more nuts and bolts kind of, how do you define a micro cinema? Is there a definition?
I would say any place that's under 100 seats. Usually they are single screens. There are certain exceptions, like Vidiot's here in Los Angeles has a second screen that's a micro that's 35 seats, but their main house is 270. Yet the way that they program their micro is much different than the way that they program the big house.
Frida.
Oh, the Frida. Well, you know what? The Frida is two screens, and they're both 200 seats.
Okay.
They are. I am jealous of their setup. For anyone outside of LA, we're talking about the Frida in Santa Ana in Orange County. To have two screens that are equal big size, that is a. They lucked out. I'm very jealous. I was going to say Alamo Drafthouse here in town is 12 screens, but they're all 40 to 50 seats, and it's a bizarre palace of micro cinemas. So there's certain exceptions, but usually it's a single screen. It's under 100 seats.
You mentioned the increase in interest and activity. Where do you see the trend? Are we in an ascendancy in terms of how people are adapting to this idea, or?
All of the micros that we might talk about in this discussion, they all opened under different sets of circumstances, meaning some of them are for profits and they had someone who was able to throw down money to develop the venue. Others are nonprofits, and then there's times when a venue has a sympathetic landlord with a piece of property that they don't know what to do with necessarily. So there's folks who luck out and they have like a good relationship with their landlord. Other times it's the city recognizes a need to create more culture and art stuff in their city, as we've seen post COVID lockdown and in the Amazon era. There's empty storefronts everywhere.
Yeah.
We are in a retail apocalypse, which sucks. And some landlords want somebody to do something with their property, so sometimes a micro cinema ends up the solution. So there's this ascendancy because the whole rest of the world sucks. And there's enough people finding out that this is one way to give back to their community in a way that they hadn't conceived of before. But like there's again, a sympathetic landlord or just like right place, right time.
Yeah.
So that's why this whole micro. Oh, and also the big movie studios are putting out fewer movies,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's the people got to have somewhere to go.
Right.
You know.
Also, do you see a certain threshold for the technical side? Are these theaters generally, do they have the kind of equipment that can give, well, I'm sure they'll say they do, but the
Hmm.
kind of equipment you need to do this in an effective way so that it is the experience that the filmmaker intended? Is that something that is across the sort of, I know you can't talk about every one of these theaters, but are they doing a good job of good presentations of these works?
I mean, all the ones that I've been to and seen with my own eyes, yes, I think they're all doing pretty well. When your 50 seats are under, you do not need a lot.
Yeah.
You can
Okay.
use prosumer technology that you just buy at Best Buy. You can get by with a basic PA set of speakers, and sometimes when you buy a projector that's good enough for home use, that's also good enough for a room that has 50 people in it.
Yeah.
And sometimes those will come with screens. I actually, a couple years ago, I bought a projector, not realizing it also came with a screen. Like, score bonus. So it doesn't take that much. Although there are micro cinemas that I know. There's one in particular, the Beacon in Seattle. They have a DCP projector, which is the same technology that like a what you'd call a quote regular movie theater
Yeah.
would also have. It doesn't take that much. The tech has evolved to the point where there's not a lot of barrier to entry. It's really just the landlord, the property, where are you going to put it?
And I might suggest that if you do have that basic model of projection,
Hmm.
that a sound system can make all the difference in the world
Yes.
in terms of what you're experiencing. So you may not be completely up to the state of the art in the projection. It's good enough, but if you have a good sound system, it makes up for a lot of sins otherwise.
Yes, and you can open a place, start it out with basic
Yeah.
AV setup, and then improve upon it if you're able to keep going, past year one or
In
whatever.
in in terms of the American Genre Film Archive, if
Hmm.
somebody like I came to you and said, you know what, I got a storefront, sort of the old 1930s musical. My uncle's got a garage.
Hmm.
What do you want to do? Do you provide? Is there someone you can direct them to in terms of moving forward with the idea of setting up their own micro cinema? Is there a sort of threshold that you need to have?
I don't know. I mean, there's no rule book. There's no expert because again, everything is case by case. Like, are you going to have to pay a huge deposit, or are you going to be able to get away with paying no rent for the first 6 months because they just want to see something happen in the space? And there's no one size fits all model, but I mean, I definitely think that AGFA's gone a long way towards making it affordable to book movies from our catalog for that kind of setting. A lot of film distributors have a minimum guarantee that they need just to take a booking.
Mhm.
And we kind of do the reverse where our pricing is based upon the venue's seating size because I know that if you're 50 seats or less, if I charge you $250, that might be more than all the tickets sold for the evening. So I don't want you to lose money because then you won't come back. And I have this huge library. I need to keep shoveling movie coal into the movie furnace, and so it's better for me to sell a movie at what the affordable price point is for the micro, rather than just kind of quoting one price fits all for all venues, and so letting everybody have to figure it
You,
out on their own.
yeah, you talked about your distributor network that you have. Severin, I, by the way, had the founder of Severin on the show about a year or so ago. What a great guy. What a fun guy he was.
Yeah, no, David is. I respect him a lot, and he has built his own empire based solely upon his interests, which is quite rare. And he employs like 20 people, and I think that it's. I I admire him a great deal. He's a hero.
I had him on to talk about was a film about all the Bruce Lee
Oh
lookalikes.
yes, yes. Enter the Clones of Bruce. Yeah.
There you go. Enter the Clones of Bruce. What a fun film that is. And that's the other thing. I think what you're describing with the sort of the distribution model, or at least films available.
Hmm.
Generally speaking, these are fun films. Generally, they're directed at, well, I mean,
Generally, yeah, yes.
generally, it's a big word, but the intent is it's a cinematic experience. It isn't the Marvel comic experience. It's not a lot of that kind of stuff. Although there have been filmmakers who have attempted to replicate that in this realm, but nonetheless, it is those kind of films. These are passion projects. A lot of these films. I
Yes.
think that's a fair way to put it.
Or cash grabs. I'm looking at my whole inventory of 70s, 80s, 90s horror films, and a lot of, they can be personal expression for the film, for the director, but they're also like for the
Yeah,
producer. They're
yeah.
cash
They're cloning off Chucky or something, right? That they're
grabs.
sort of working that angle. I just want to quickly remind our listeners that we're speaking with Brett Berg. He is the theatrical sales director for American Genre Film Archive, or AGFA. Gosh, what's it been like for you as just someone who loves film? I know going back many, many years, just what I've known of your time
Hmm.
in the biz, that
Hmm.
you are a true cinemaphile. And what's it been like for you to see this sort of begin to blossom, these many years of you being around this? How does it feel?
It's still kind of wild to me to be the professional steward of movies that I grew up with. So being able to say to a venue, yes, you can book Donnie Darko or Phantasm or Ringu or even like I mentioned Cassavetes earlier. Like yes, you could yes to A Woman Under the Influence for February 12th on DCP. Like it's insane to me. And then a lot of the films. So my previous to being the program director at Cinefamily, I was one of the managers at Cinephile Video, which is still there in Santa
Is it
Monica. That's
really?
still new,
It's
next
still
to the
there?
Newark.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
still there. New owner, different from the time that I was there in the 2000s. But a lot of the films that we had bootlegs of, meaning not like pirated, but just films that were never had a release in the United States, and so we knew how to get tapes and then later DVD-Rs of rare European movies and all that stuff. To see a lot of those titles that went from bootleg all the way to 4K UHD in today's world, and then they end up with us. That's the most wild part of all, is seeing the rebirth of all these films that never even had a chance in the first place in the States, but then suddenly they're part of this collector market, and they're in pristine form. They will never be seen as, it's as good as it's ever going to get for movie X. It reminds me that no matter how many stones you overturn, you're never going to get to the last one. I always think that, I'm glad I finally figured out exactly how many movies there are in the world, and then your mind is blown the next week all over again by some new batch of stuff that
Yeah.
videos.
Are you working with, like, I know UCLA has a film archive. Is there things that kind of crossover in terms of if they wanted to screen, maybe a preview screening for something that they're working on in terms of restoration? Is this the kind of environment where you could provide that sort of a venue for someone in that sort of realm of sort of, I'll call it the academic realm of restoration? Is that something you guys have done at all?
We have collaborated with other archives, not
Okay.
in this, not necessarily to facilitate a screening, because that's more the venue side than the archive side. But we have taken material from UCLA Film and TV Archive, our release of the films of the Gay Girls Writing Club, who were a filmmaking collective in the 1960s in Los Angeles, who made some of the very first drag themed films.
Okay.
We did restorations of a whole bunch of them, and that was a disc release of ours, I want to say, in like 2022, something like that. And then more recently, with the Academy Film Archive, they had restored a film called Scarecrow in a Garden of Cucumbers, which was a movie starring Holly Woodlawn, who was part of the Andy Warhol, Paul Morrissey
Okay.
stable of
Okay.
total
Yeah.
weirdos.
Yeah.
And this movie was not a Warhol movie, but it was made around that time. It's kind of like it's more sketch comedy. It's actually more like a lost Robert Downey Sr. movie more than like a Warhol thing. But they had restored it, and they had no plans to release it on their own because they don't have a label. and we knew it was around. It was enough in the public domain that we felt good about asking, could we just take your restoration, put it out in theaters and on disc, and we'll split the money with you. And they went, okay. No one's ever asked us to do that before, but I guess. And so that was a release of ours. Was that earlier this year? Last year? I can't remember.
Can you see a situation, because it's something that's in my mind in terms of the sort of where do micro cinemas fit into the firmament of presentation, film presentation?
Mm,
Could you see a kind of a network of these theaters as a kind of a testing ground for maybe some indie films that are looking for a wider release, maybe with a bigger distributor, or I've got some distribution and they're doing almost just to see how it's going to play? Because to me, micro cinemas are kind of the embodiment of people who love films, who will go to see just about anything if they think it's interesting. And I
mm.
just wonder if that's ever sort of been come crossed your mind that it could be a proving ground for maybe some distributors who aren't sure how the film is going to play to a wider release. Has that ever come up in your conversation?
Well, I don't know enough about the current landscape of festivals to know, like, if you do your own bookings, like if you're a filmmaker and you book your own movie into
Well, that's a
something.
different, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, like I don't know if that precludes festivals from taking a film. I also know very little about the first run world and
Okay.
just new movies in general. My expertise in what AGFA's business model is really about a deep catalog of older stuff
Okay.
rather than I'm a new filmmaker, I've got this thing, what do I do with it? Like if someone was a filmmaker and they had a film and they asked me, I have this film, what do I do with it? I would say sell it to Tubi. I really have no clue
Well,
what the landscape is, and nor have I ever tried to make a traditional movie myself. It seems
yeah.
daunting, so I
Well,
just.
my thought was it's something like a music box
Hmm.
distributor, right?
Hmm.
Or Bright Iris or somebody, whatever it would be, a smaller, and just wanted to see how it played with just in it, like almost like a test audience of sorts.
Hmm.
Because the thing I hear from distributors is just how much money's involved in getting a film out there in a wider release. And if
Hmm.
it doesn't land right away, it's just like the flower that bloomed that no one saw. And there's so many of those. I can tell you from my own experience of 2,500 interviews with filmmakers,
Hmm.
there have been hundreds of films that I consider to be really good quality, that never went anywhere. And it breaks my heart. So that's why I posed the question.
This is some filmmakers may not want to hear this, but not every movie is a theatrical experience.
Okay.
Maybe it used to be decades ago, like let's say in the 90s American indie boom. A lot of small films did benefit from being seen, like I got to see all kinds of things at the Lemley Sunset 5 and
Yeah.
the Music Hall 3 and
Right.
the Monica and and the New Art and the new,
Yeah.
there was an ecosystem for it. And it's not necessarily that streaming has killed it. It's just that there's too many movies. There's so many movies available, both old and new,
Yeah.
in your face at any time,
Yeah.
that for something to be a theatrical experience, it really has to stick out in
Okay.
some particular way, whether that's through a specialty audience, like a documentary about a subject where you can do a talk back with the audience after the film, like you get someone from the local university or what have you, or someone's on a book tour or whatever. Or or there's a couple names involved with the film, or it's like what was the recent huge indie hit that was in theaters, and it was just in theaters, Hundreds of Beavers.
Yes.
They created, through sheer force of willpower, they created a theatrical experience by touring with the film,
Yeah.
doing a pre-show, which involves sometimes like wrestling, someone in a beaver costume wrestling somebody. They provided enough of a show that people had to go see it in the theater in order to like get the movie. So there's just, I mean, not every movie is meant to be seen
No,
by
I
a
hear
paying
you.
audience of people paying $12 to $15 to see it.
Yeah. Outstanding. I am so, so happy. You cannot imagine how happy I am to hear that there might even be a golden age of micro cinemas. That really was an IndieWire article that I saw,
Hmm.
and I tracked you down. I'm so glad we reconnected. It was many years ago, and it was fleeting in my introduction or my interaction with you and your community at Cine Family, and but I'm glad to see that you've landed on your feet here. So that's fantastic. Congratulations to you. Truly, continued success wherever, whatever you're doing, however you're doing it, because I know you and your colleagues from that time were
Hmm.
true film fanatics, true film lovers, and it's just fantastic. Just makes me happy to see where you are, and I trust and hope that you're as happy as I hope you are.
I think that what AGFA's doing and that what people on the ground are doing, both in microcinemas and like established art house institutions, this is the best my business has ever been, and that's for a reason.
I certainly hope that you continue to do the good work you're doing. American Genre Film Archive, AGFA, AGFA. Bret Berg, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
You're very welcome.
You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.